we start getting phone calls. The phone starts ringing off the hook, and it is Ubisoft, and they are fucking pissed. When I worked on the magazines, which was from like 2005 to 2012, I believe. I think that's when I went freelance, 2012. And I was still a games journalist for a long time after that, but that's when I was literally working on the magazines. I used to work for a magazine called Games TM, just said Games at the top and a little TM. It was like Edge, it was like the main competitor to Edge magazine. And at the time, I was the reviews editor of that magazine. And it was the time when Assassin's Creed 1 came out. And I decided to take the review for myself. I was so excited for this game. It just looked like every part my cup of tea. Really did. And then I got it in and took it home for the weekend. And I just thought it was interminably boring when I was playing it. Deathly boring. Like the thing, remember Assassin's Creed 1? We had to just sit on a bench and listen to some people talk. You'd have to do this unbelievably boring shit in order to unlock the next assassination that you had to do. And then when you unlock that assassination, there was no freedom like they'd been suggesting in the previews. There was nothing that was like the Hitman games. You just went and kind of did a rote thing that they'd prescribed, killed the guy, then it would cut to a fucking boring cutscene. I personally didn't like any of the sci-fi stuff. I know people do. I thought that really took away from the setting. And I just, I fucking grinded this thing for hours and hours and hours. And I didn't like it. And the office that I worked in was our magazine. There was 2 different Xbox magazines and there was a PlayStation magazine. I think at the time there was a PC magazine as well. But there was 4 of us doing reviews of Assassin's Creed 1 at the same time. So inevitably you get chatting to the other journalists. Most people seem to feel the same way. They just weren't really feeling it. And there's an element that maybe we were slightly influencing each other in the conversations. But yeah, none of us were feeling this game. So when it came to writing my review, I ended up giving it a 4 out of 10 because I was a firm believer that 7 out of 10, even though that's what everyone says is the average, it's like, no, 5 out of 10 is average. I think this is below average. I think it's massively disappointed. I'm going to give it a 4. Now, I didn't know what the other magazines had given it, but I think one gave it a 5, one gave it like 58%, and then I can't remember what the other one gave it. Anyway, oh my God, this caused an absolute fucking shit show. An absolute shit show. So, put our reviews out, and this is magazine days, right? So, it's not like you'd publish your review to an IGN or a Eurogamer online, and it would be online within 2 hours, and then you get the fallouts and the comments, or YouTube as it is these days. The process was we'd file the review, and I think maybe at the time there was maybe another week until deadline of the magazine, so you had another week of doing all your work and writing, and the editor was compiling the magazine design and stuff. Then it would go to the printers, and then it would be on store shelves like another probably 10 days after that. So there's a good 20 days between me giving that game a 4 and it being on shelves. But it comes on shelves and we start getting phone calls. The phone starts ringing off the hook, and it is Ubisoft, and they are fucking pissed. Pissed, man. Screaming down the phone. Myself, another editor who worked on a different magazine at the time, they were so furious about the scores that they'd given, and they believed, which wasn't true, they believed because they'd given, I don't know if I NDA'd from my old company contract or anything like that, but I don't think so, whatever. They believed, this was so long ago anyway, statute of limitations, they believed that we, as in the publishing company that I work for, which is called Imagine, had come together in a conspiracy with like the owner of the MD of the company and all this sort of stuff, because Ubisoft had given the front cover exclusives for Assassin's Creed to our rivals, who are Future Publishing, who did a bunch of different magazines, Edge being one of them, that we had come together and decided to kill this game, Assassin's Creed, and they were threatening access, they were threatening pulling ad spend on the magazines, they were threatening everything, like fucking screaming at us to the point where there had to be big meetings between like heads over there and heads here. This shit went on for like a year plus, all because we scored the game how we felt like the game should be scored. There was no conspiracy. We didn't even think about that stuff. Game was shit. Said it was shit. And I stand by my score all these years later. Goes to show that so many people wonder what happens with games journalists and why they score things 7 out of 10 when they actually think that in their head it's probably lower than that. And I tell you what, that's why. Because thankfully there was 4 of us who was dealing with this. Thankfully, our bosses at the time, who were like the editors of the magazine, backed us. which they hadn't done on different things in the future, which is one of the reasons I left. Thankfully that I wasn't quite as young as I was when I started, because if that had happened to me at 22, where like a fucking 35, 40-year-old bloke is screaming down the phone at me, I don't know how I'd have dealt with that. Now at the time I was like 26, 27, I dealt with it relatively well. I was just more pissed off back than anything. But the threats are scary, man, because we're not going to give you access to the games anymore. Now, bear in mind, this is magazine time, so in order to get a review out on time, you had to get shit in really early. It's not like, we'll just wait till the game releases and then, we'll be 2 days later than everybody else. No, that shit mattered. So they knew they had a bit of power over us with that sort of stuff. We weren't necessarily going to get the covers for the magazines on future games, like next Assassin's Creed, next Splinter Cell, whatever it was from them. And of course, we didn't deal with the ad side of things. That was a different team within the company. But in a time where print magazines were going like this anyway. By the way, Mutar didn't go into the stock price. Apparently the stock price of Ubisoft's massively fallen since all this, unsurprisingly. Not what I'm talking about, this Assassin's Creed Shadow stuff. They were threatening to pull ad spend as well at the time. Now, I think it all got ironed out and nothing ever happened. And then their PR person for Ubisoft changed and actually gave our magazines Assassin's Creed 2, which is crazy. And that caused a big fallout with the rivals. I can't believe they did that for us. But yeah, that goes to show, like, I can totally understand it's wrong, but I can understand why journalists have got too cozy with devs and PRs, because it's a fucking unholy alliance. It really is. It really fucking is. And you have to have some stones and some backbone to be able to deal with that. That was my Ubisoft story. And to be honest, I fucking hated them ever since. But I've played a bunch of their games and liked them since. But yeah, I'll always have that's never not going to affect you. Getting screamed at down the phone by somebody. Right, that'll always be there. And so I'll always have that thing with Assassin's Creed as well. But I love 2, and I like Brotherhood. 3 was a bit of a mess, but some people really like it. Black Flag was cool. And I didn't mind the Egypt one. Valhalla was super boring. And then we'll see what happens with Shadows. I'm intrigued to play Shadows, man. I really am. I'm intrigued to play Shadows. Because, who knows? It might actually be really good.